They then use the water in their city. It comes out of the wastewater treatment plant at 56th and York on the South Platte River. Then they recapture it by Brighton. They divert it out of the South Platte River, store it underground, and then pump it in this pipeline. You may have seen it along E470, kind of by PIA a few years ago. They're putting this pipeline and they'll pump it back to Aurora to use, because they're allowed to use and reuse the water if they can capture and control it in a pipe. So that's one example. Another example, you may have read about this one, Flaming Gorge water pipeline. Kind of hard to tell. The top is Wyoming. Way on the left is Utah. The right side is the Front Range. That green line is the proposed water pipeline from Flaming Gorge Reservoir in Utah along I-80 in Wyoming, come down by Fort Collins, Greeley, down to the Denver metro area. It'd be a way to bring more water to the Front Range. Then we were talking earlier, there's a plan, it was in the paper a few weeks ago, about a water pipeline from the Arkansas River to Colorado Springs. These water pipelines are really our new water highways for the future. Are they good or are they bad things? Well, that's a personal opinion. But if you spend any time in Southern California, they were building water pipelines, I think in the late 1920s, 1930s, from Northern California to Southern California. This is no different. The Owens Valley back in the day, if you ever watched the movie Chinatown with Jack Nicholson, it was about water rights from the irrigators and so forth. We are seeing we're going to see Colorado change in terms of these water pipelines because there is an enormous amount of demand for water in the Denver metro area. I was at a conference a couple of years ago in Douglas County, and someone from the county, it might have been one of the county commissioners, I don't remember, but they got up and they said that they estimated there was a pent-up demand in the Denver metro area for water that equaled, I think it was $8 billion, billion with a B. There's $8 billion of pent-up demand for water in the Denver metro area. It'll keep growing. So if you have $8 billion in play, that's why you'll read about water developers going out north, assembling water portfolios to sell to the Douglas County area. That's why Aurora's buying water rights from farmers up north. There's so much money at play because of development that's coming. Water has to come from someplace. You can conserve about 15%. West slope water, tough to get politically. You can build more reservoirs, difficult to get a permit to build them because of environmental mitigation, or you can dry up farms. So the folks in this room, and Don included, you're kind of at the center of this debate, and that is, what's the face of the Front Range going to look like in terms of irrigated agriculture? Is it going to be sold to the Front Range? I have a friend that sold, they grew up in north of here, on a farm all their life. Mom and dad farmed all their life. City came up to him and said, I'll give you $4 million for your water rights. So you're going, okay, I'm 60 years old. That's been my 401k. I'm not making a lot of money farming. $4 million, of course you're going to sell. Now the neighbor across the street may not own shares in that ditch company. The neighbor may only have a well, and the neighbor across the road is going to go bankrupt because they can't pump their well. That's what's kind of happening in the ag community up north is you've got some folks fortunate enough to have good water rights. Others are being forced off the farm because they can't use that alluvial groundwater because there's just not enough water to go around. So it's a fascinating dynamic to watch, and you all just watch the newspapers. You've already been seeing the articles. We're in a really interesting phase of change in Colorado, particularly the Front Range, in terms of these water highways that are coming and the water being purchased off of farms. Now, public policy doesn't really have a say in what's better or what's not so good to do. At this point, each city kind of just does what they decide is best for that city. That's pretty much how it works. Is that good or bad? Well, that's a policy thing for individuals. I might be out of time. So now, on the good note, let's do a good note. Good note is there's a lot of water this year. Snowpack is 220% in the South Platte Basin. If you're a rafter or have a rafting company, man, you're going to have crowds coming. My lawn looks better than it's ever looked, I can say that. Food is still cheap. A lot of interesting things in play. All that could change in coming years as water becomes more scarce and there's more controversy. But things we'll always have enough water for our communities. It's just where does it come from? And that's the debate that's going on now with our government, with our communities.
Repeat the question,
So
please.
his question is about the proposed Big Straw project a few years ago in Colorado, to bring water from the Colorado River, I think by Grand Junction or somewhere out there, pump it back to the Denver metro area. I've heard very little about that. The state of Colorado studied it. It was going to be very expensive, I believe, just the pumping and the water quality issues. Plus, the water comes from the west slope, so there are lots of issues with that whole project. I think it's pretty well not going anywhere.
Andrea?
So, once a year or so, during spring, the Highland Canal runs with water. And what's the purpose?
Oh, that's a good question. And some of you in the audience...
Why does the Highline Water Canal run with water? What's the purpose?
Why is there water in the Highline Canal? And people in the audience may know that better than I do. Perhaps it's to irrigate parks. Perhaps. I don't know. In Fort Collins, we have some irrigation canals that run just intermittently during the year. It's irrigating the open space at the old Hewlett-Packard plant, that sort of thing. Or perhaps a city park. So the answer is I don't know.
Well, representative.
I have a question about purple pipe.
Purple pipe?
Purple pipe. You know about purple pipe?
Purple pipe?
It's surplus water that we don't have to send downstream. Get used. Who does that belong to and how do we use it?
Good question.
Repeat the question, please.
The gentleman's asking about the purple pipes that he sees sometimes, and I think what we're referring to here, purple pipes, are in some subdivisions they'll have dual water systems, and the purple pipe, I believe, is recycled water that you can use in your lawn. It's a second use. That's one thought I'd have for a purple pipe. That'd be about the only reason I would know you'd have a purple pipe somewhere. It's recycled water. Under Colorado law, you can use and reuse certain types of water. It depends on where the water originated, though, and that gets into a legal debate.
Representative.
Could you,
Hold on a second, we have the answer to purple pipe.
purple pipe?
On the purple pipe, like South Adams, the South Adams Water District, they're using tributary water as the second source of water to the homes. Tributary water is the water that he was talking about that ultimately gets to the river from wells. So they're now buying up wells to use for watering lawns and outside use, and they designate them by purple. Denver Water is using the purple. They actually have a recycling type method that they're using, going to parks and golf courses and places like that. It is actually the state. There's a number of places that it goes to.
You wouldn't want to drink water out of a purple pipe.
Could you comment on the Sterling Ranch, the development that's in southwest metro area? Will they get the water they need? Is it good, bad, those sorts of things, please?
So that Sterling Ranch, I know enough about that project to be dangerous. I'm not real familiar with it. I know they had a public hearing a few months ago where there were a ton of people and the proposal's been changed several times. And I'm trying to remember where they proposed the water comes from. I'm trying to remember. Underground, what, deep water? You know, it's the Douglas County aquifer. It's a deep aquifer. It's declining pretty quickly. What happens, it'll decline to a level where it's really expensive to pump it up. But if you have enough money, you can continue to bring it up. But if everyone keeps doing that, it keeps going down and down, kind of like water in a saucer. It's a good question. I don't know. But non-renewable water, this is dinosaur water, got put down there a long time ago. It doesn't really get recharged. Eventually, you're going to use it up. Eventually. I don't know if Sterling Ranch would cost that, though. That I don't know.
I've been here since '66, and I went through all the debacle about the two forks. Will that ever raise its head again? Is that a possibility to build new forks?
And that's a good question. My personal opinion, I just came in '82. My personal opinion is no, because it'd be really tough to build